Good morning, traders and investors. Thank you for tuning in today on this very busy earnings day of the season. We're going to talk over a ton of earnings. We're going to basically see how many earnings we can fit in here. Spotify, GM, NXPI, RCL, SoFi, Honeywell, among others. Hopefully we can get to some more. We do have a couple macro items to go over today, including Canadian election results. We do have some kind of shufflings of potential trade deal with India or Japan. Treasury Secretary Bessent is going to be speaking from the White House at 8:30 a.m. Big mover, the biggest mover this morning, HIMS, a deal and a whole ton of price action. Our guest today, Ivan Feinseth of Tigress Financial. Let's get it going here, folks, on pre-market prep.
The volatility right now is really incredible.
Wow, look at that consolidation on the upper right chart.
You know what we've seen this earnings season? Some of these expected moves get even more violent. This is why I have switched my strategy 10 years ago. And if you're chasing, you're in trouble.
Christian Fromhertz, how's your weekend real quick, sir? We haven't seen you in a minute.
Very good, very good. A lot of movers this morning, so I'll try to get through. I'll go through commodities very quickly because I know we got a lot to go over. Huge day of earnings, huge day of movers, so let's get down to it. I'm going to start with just going over what the crude market is doing this morning, which is leaning lower, down 1.4%. Nat gas this morning, is moving up 2%. I actually like a couple of the nat gas names. They're looking pretty good technically. Copper this morning, copper futures are up another 2% this morning for copper. Copper has been raging lately. Very nice move here. Let's get over to what bonds are doing this morning. Bonds are down 20%, 0.2 of a percentage point for the 30-year bond futures. Gold, which had a very nice day yesterday, I thought that was a bit odd. Giving back some of those gains today, down about 1%. I just want to cover international markets too. Euro stocks are essentially down just slightly in the red, down 20 basis points. And pretty quiet over in Asia last night too, with the Hang Seng just up 10 basis points. Let me get over to equity futures, which pretty muted moves in the overnight market. I see equity futures right around flat right now, into some resistance right there. 55.70 is the level that I'm watching in S&P futures. NASDAQ futures, also not a big mover right now, essentially flat. Making, by the way, nice move yesterday, comeback move, which we could talk about as well this morning. Russell futures, which outperformed yesterday, up again this morning, outperforming not by huge, but just a little bit, up 0.2 of a percentage point. So, good morning. We got a lot of stuff to go over. Do we want to talk HIMS first, guys?
Let's bring Triple D in here. Triple D, how's your morning going, sir?
It's going. Obviously, had the Canadian election last night, so I was up late. I'll just quickly jump in to give you results. It is indeed a liberal minority government, which was what the polls were calling for. They said there was a slight chance liberals could get a majority. They did not. They got the minority. If we look back 3 months ago, it was going conservative all the way, but the polls had flipped. We obviously looked at PreMarket yesterday. It was an 85% chance Carney was going to win before they started tallying the votes. He did end up winning. Repercussions for U.S. markets are probably not much at this point in time. I don't think you're going to see, I do think it makes a deal between Canada and the U.S. a little tougher, because I think Poilievre and Trump aligned on a little bit more stuff than probably Carney and Trump do. Carney also a businessman as well, ran a lot of successful businesses, Brookfield Asset Management, former banker. So he could be a little bit tougher to negotiate with. So that's probably the only overall repercussions. But just to let you know, liberal government in Canada, so Carney remains prime minister.
Good stuff. Appreciate that little update here. We do have just a quick heads up. This morning, Treasury Secretary Bessent is going to be speaking from the White House for a press briefing at 8:30 a.m. I don't know if we know the topic that he's going to be talking about, but Dennis, you were kind of like seeing on social media a little bit, some kind of rumors of a trade deal. What did you see? You're reading a couple items off to me.
So Bessent is going to be speaking at 8:30 this morning, giving and there's rumors, and again, nothing is confirmed, that there's a possibility he could announce a deal with either India or Japan. That's just rumors in social media right now. People are talking about it, so we have no confirmation of that. But I mean, we
Even
should
more
be aware
like,
because that's in 24 minutes, so he could move markets. So we want to be aware of that.
Probably even more like appropriate to call it like speculation than rumors, right? But we did want to just give you a heads up that this is going to be happening at 8:30 a.m. while we are on the show. If we do hear anything while we are on the show, we'll definitely try to break in where we can. Let's go to our one or two stock stories here for today. Hims announcing a deal with Novo Nordisk, long-term collaboration for Novo Nordisk. A bundled offering of Novo Nordisk FDA-approved Wegovy on the Hims and Hers platform. Hims shares right now are trading up like 35%. Christian, you traded this sucker. I don't know if it was last night or this morning. What kind of action did you get here?
I add here. Let's have my charts first. Whoops. Oh, what happened? There we go. So this was a swing trade that I added last week. I noticed that the price action was very tight, so it was a nice technical setup, right? I mean, the obviously growth names really got going last week. We saw a real nice call buyer in the name, which kind of just stood out to me towards the end. I think it was actually what's the date here? This was on Thursday. So Thursday, I added this as a swing trade. We saw a call buyer, which stood out to me. Aggressive call buyer.
Where do you find that? I want to just set this up for us. When you're like looking through it, I've always struggled with this because you obviously lots of call buyers and put buyers all the time. How do you identify the call buyer, like, you know, like a big one or something? You're just looking at size of trade? Because I mean, when there's a call buyer, there's a call seller too. So I've always wondered, how you look at this. I know the Nigerian brothers do it very well. Obviously, I had John on the show before. Talk, Christian, about how you identified this, because you ended up being right.
Yeah, I mean, just something that stands out. I mean, it's there is always going to be somebody. There's somebody who wants to buy, and then the market maker is going to hedge. So that's basically how it works. I mean, and what I generally look for is just aggressive option flow on the tape and something that stands out. So something that's like, normally just don't see a lot of activity in Hims. So when I see something where it's like a $200,000 premium bet in a single name like this, it does catch my attention. And we see a lot of trades like this all day, every day. So it really becomes something where I'm going to put it into my system and I'm going to decide whether or not I'm going to decide to take the trade. If it's a good technical setup to me and the environment is right for it right now, then I will go ahead and I won't hesitate and I'll put the trade on. And that's what I thought. Yes. Last week when I saw the trade go up on the tape, I said, hey, let me take a look at the chart. And I was like, wow, this price action is really, really getting tight here. So I wasn't looking for much of a move. And again, you never know the motivation of anybody who's buying calls or puts. You don't know if they're hedging. You've got really no idea. So I will just kind of look at it and say, okay, well, that's interesting, and I'll use it as an idea if it works in my system. We also know that if it's like repeat activity in a name, sometimes that will spur momentum because everybody starts talking about the name. But we never know the intent of what they're doing. So again, I just kind of filter it in my system and say, my thought process last week was, A, the technical setup looked pretty good, and B, all the growth names started to go last week. So, we had names obviously like Palantir going last week and CrowdStrike, and so various different, growth was up huge last week. And for me, it just kind of fit the bucket of, of going into, having a good technical setup and knowing that this group was hot last week. So I did trim it yesterday because again, I wasn't looking for much in the move, but
you didn't know this headline was coming.
Of course, but again, and that's the small percentage time where somebody does buy calls and they actually know something, and you have to be careful with that because it's a small percentage of when you actually see call flow and they actually do know something. And people take that and they run with it and they say, oh my God, now I'm going to follow option activity. And it's a very rare situation, but I'm happy to catch it.
It's such a tricky situation, and maybe the person just gets lucky too. Like, you could just be looking technicals and setups, and I mean, you never know anybody's intentions. It's not like they can put an intention identifier when you buy or sell a stock, but it's always interesting when you see a big call buyer, and then obviously you see the big pop here this morning. So are you out of the trade now here, Christian?
I am. Again, I wasn't looking, I was a little bit too aggressive getting out this morning, but it's fine. I mean, I'll take the win and move on. I forget how much short interest is in this thing. It's 34% short interest, which can, when you've got positive news like this, it could really get stocks to move. And when shorts have to cover, with the short end just being 34%. And we've seen this before in HIMS. So it did rally all the way up to $42, but it's trading off. It's trading back below 38 right now.
We might have to. We're going to put you, Christian, can you just work on your internet here for 2 minutes in the background? And me and Brent will just go on the next stock because you're breaking up quite badly here. So we'll just see, maybe you got some other stuff you can stop running there in the background.
Sure.
So Brentster, we got earnings.
Yes, sir.
And there's been a lot of earnings here this morning, a lot of earnings last night. I mean, we could start anywhere, but you noticed, some moves even happening in the futures at 6:30, and I think that coincides with a few reports we got.
Yeah. So like the disclaimer is that I look at a 1 minute chart. I look at a 1 minute chart because when I was doing news, we needed to be extremely sensitive. Like, oh, this thing right here led to this news item led to this price action here.
Yeah.
So I'm looking at my 1 minute chart. Just after 6:30 a.m., we had a huge volume bar, and we pulled back, about 15, 16 points or so. I'm like looking around for news at that time. We had another big pullback on another huge volume bar a few minutes after. We pulled back about 20 points on SP 500 futures or so. I'm looking around for news. I didn't see news. I kind of asked you about it. It seems like it probably was just related to some of these earnings reports that we got this morning.
So.
We got Spotify and we got GM, which, Spotify was a big winner over the last few weeks. They had the results, stocks moving lower. GM, a big bellwether, also moving lower. Why don't we start with Spotify, Dennis? We had a mixed report out of Spotify. They did give some strong Q2 guidance, better than expected guidance. They gave their monthly active users for Q1 678 million. That was flat quarter over quarter and up 10%. Their premium subscriptions, 268 million. That was a little better expected than their guidance at 265 million. So, mixed report on the quarter, but kind of some strong figures elsewhere. And shares here this morning, trading down a few percent or so. Yeah.
Yeah, bouncing off the lows. We were down as much as $50 on this. I saw us down as much as 50. We might have even been lower than that. So we're only down 30 here now. So it is, a stock that was very strong into the report, which again, we've been talking about stocks trading up near 52-week highs. And when they're trading near 52-week highs, they've got to blow it away. They absolutely can't miss these earnings, and this missed earnings. So that's why Spotify is going down. I do believe the futures, quote, so you had GM reported just after 6:30, and this came out about 6:40. So, I mean, it does coincide with the two drops we had, and General Motors obviously had a big drop, and so did Spotify as well. I don't know what the expected move on Spotify was. I never looked it up, but it feels like it's probably in there somewhere. Christian, did you know what the here? I can look it up what it was, actually, because I'm just curious how far it got down to. How far did this get down, Christian? Did you notice Spotify, how far it got down? The expected move was $62. Did we get down $62? Bounce off the expected move? Christian's on mute. Sorry. I think your internet's good now. There you
go. We got down to support 545 and bounce. So real nice level of support, 545, which is down 4%. I don't know what the implied move was, but
just inside it. Just inside it because it was just over that. So yeah.
But support held.
Yeah. So Spotify gets hit, and then General Motors.
I see a pre-market low in Spotify. Yep. So GM beat on both the figures. Interestingly, they did move their conference call to tomorrow. They were supposed to be this morning and they moved it to tomorrow. I don't think we like read into that or anything like that. But in the press release, they did say they did not give guidance as far as I saw, but they did say they were going to discuss their guidance on their conference call, which they moved. They did say, they did kind of warn, their guidance does not include the impact of tariffs. Also, they suspended their buybacks and they did cite macro uncertainty for their suspension of buybacks. I mean, sounds a bit prudent here to me. They're uncertain ahead. They maybe want to save a little bit of cash that they have. Shares of GM here this morning trading down. Is it only down about 1% right now, Dennis?
It's bounced too, so everything got hit. And again, this is the opposite of Spotify, where General Motors had a very low bar going in. I mean, nobody expected, even after the Tesla numbers, which were not great there last week, nobody expected GM to blow it away. I mean, I think the market really gets spooked when they freeze their share buyback on Trump tariffs. So, I mean, that's, concerning in itself as well. But I mean, they're in the eye of the storm here. They don't even know, there was rumors yesterday there's going to be some auto parts relief, that they weren't going to tariff them as much, but we just don't have any fear. And we don't have the full, story here on tariffs on how they're going to impact GM. So for them to give guidance is impossible. So I'm not surprised they suspended. I think the market really got spooked with the freezing of the buyback. But with that being said, the stock has bounced off those lows. Christian, you got any thoughts on General Motors?
Nah, that's a stock I don't trade. So it's too choppy. I mean, I get it's in the headlines and people want to know about autos, but this is a stock I've never been able to really make a lot of money on. So I don't
go back to the Spotify for a second, because this was a stock that Christian, it's up near 52-week highs, maybe fits your bill a little bit more. It's been strong. Is this a dip you would consider buying? Because you think about so I have this non-tariff list going. Netflix is at the top of it, but Spotify number 2, like Roblox, Take-Two, EA, like tech stocks that really aren't impacted by tariffs. So Spotify is definitely on that list. What are your thoughts here on buying the dip on Spotify?
Yeah, so I own this and I sold it yesterday. I got lucky and I sold it yesterday morning. It was a stock that I got long on the back of Netflix, but I don't like the monthly active users declining. 689 is what they reported versus estimate of 694. So I do like the support here to trade off of for like a quick trade, which would have worked at this 545 level, but I'm not going to, I think I'm going to take Spotify off my radar for now because they didn't beat on, and most of these numbers, like the streaming numbers, like Netflix and, a couple of the other ones, they need to grow their monthly active users. So while it's in that nice niche of not getting tariffed or not having to worry about tariffs, I don't like the numbers in terms of, their growth. So I think there's plenty of other names to trade than this. So for now, this one kind of goes to the backseat for me.
Let's keep it rolling on the earnings train to NXPI reported last night. One of our first big chip companies, especially out of Europe, to report. They did report a beat on the quarter. They did give some Q2 guidance. Both their Q2 sales and earnings per share guidance was kind of like right at the midpoint of the range that analysts were suggesting. They also announced that their CEO is going to be retiring at the end of 2025. They did name a successor there. The executive news doesn't seem to be concerning. Seems like, it's amicable. He's retiring. There's a successor. I don't know if we should necessarily be hugely concerned with that. Despite, what appears to be a strong quarter, some strong guidance, shares trading down about 7 or 8% here this morning. Dennis, this was one that you certainly had on your radar last night.
Yeah.
You didn't trade it though, right?
No, I didn't trade NXPI. I was trading some of the other chips, and there was a lot of sympathy moves here too, with obviously a lot of chips going down, and especially some of those that are overseas. Microchip MCHP is trading down 1.74%. On semiconductors, down 2.8%. The entire SMH is trading down as well. It's down 0.55% here. So you do have lots of, Texas Instruments, another one sometimes can move with it too, but it already reported. But NXPI definitely trading weak here this morning. Not getting much of a bounce here either. Like we've seen a little bit of this, buy the dip mentality on companies, that are reporting earnings. Even Spotify coming off its lows, General Motors coming off its lows this morning. NXPI has not had much of a bounce here at all. It's kind of still sitting down near the lows. So I find that interesting as well. Obviously, a company that, its primary headquarters is overseas in Europe. So maybe, that's something to do with it too. It's probably, getting traded obviously with volume from there as well. So NXPI down 15. I don't know. Any technical setups here, Christian, on this one?
Well, I was actually just looking. I'll go to NXPI in just a second, but I was just looking at this SMH, which is the semis
Sure.
ETF out there, and I would really be paying attention to 206.60. It has the makings of. I hate to say this before it happens because it's not a pattern until it happens, but I see left shoulder, head, right shoulder. So watch the neckline here. This could be a short-term head and shoulders top. Watch 206.61. That would be a level to pay attention to. So that kind of just caught my eyes. We're going through some charts. NXPI is a little bit no man's land for me. It's in the it's got bearish 80% roll on the 1 hour chart. So I would pay attention to support down at 172.20 and resistance up at 193. I don't really see a trade right this second.
Folks, we got about
Nvidia
12 minutes or so.
I want to. Sorry, Brent. I thought it was when there's silence.
Keep
I
going.
Jump in, but
go for it, Dennis.
I want to just quickly mention Nvidia too, because Nvidia had a rough day yesterday on that Huawei news with the extra chip that they were doing, the AI chip developing. Really didn't participate much, in yesterday's rally in the afternoon. It was up a little bit and ended up being down still though, and then it's down here again today. So I just wanted to get quickly Christian's thoughts here. I know we segued away from earnings for a second, but Nvidia is related in here. I want to get your thoughts on Nvidia. I'm long Nvidia in the long-term portfolio. I had bought more on the recent dip down to 91. Thoughts here on Nvidia? Do you like anything in the setup here, or is it still just downtrending and you're staying away?
Well, I am long it too in my long-term account. I put this on a couple of weeks ago as a dip buy, but the more that I kind of look at it, we talked a little bit about this name yesterday in the STN room too, where I just think if you look at the overall trend here, and again this is bigger picture stuff, but I just think that Nvidia has had such a run up over the last couple of years that it is due to consolidate. And where I see it now is just in a consolidation phase. I think that it's got such a target on its back right now too, that everybody's looking to kind of develop their own AI chips. Obviously, going back a couple of months ago, the big DeepSeek thing, I think that really put a cap on the stock price for now, and I think it just goes sideways. So I'm actually looking to transition out of Nvidia at this point. I just don't see any major signal with it yet either, because it's still below its 200-day moving average. Maybe if it can get over this hump of right around like 114.5, then it would get me a little bit more excited technically. But I just think that this is going to be in a consolidation phase for a bit.
We do have about 6 minutes here, folks, before we should be getting Treasury Secretary Bessent speaking. Again, we will try to update you that if there is anything notable. Let's keep the earnings train rolling here. Royal Caribbean, RCL with a mixed quarter. Royal Caribbean, believe it or not, folks, raised their guidance, and it was a fine raise. It wasn't like a tiny raise or anything. They're raising their fiscal year EPS guidance from $14.35 to $14.65 up to $14.55 to $15.55. Analysts are around $15. Shares are trading higher, about 5% here this morning. Obviously, a bit of a bellwether for some of the travel names. Dennis, you had this one on your radar, but I don't think you venture to trade or invest in the cruise liners rather often.
I find it interesting because we've seen a lot of weakness out of the airlines, and we've heard, rumors of, travel, being down substantially or looking to be down substantially. Maybe not yet, but, coming. And I've thought that as well with international travel going down. We're seeing numbers, of obviously people flying less international flights. I was like, well, that can't be good for the cruise lines. RCL's not saying that. RCL says we're fine. RCL's increasing the full year guidance. That's gutsy. I mean, they must be pretty confident here. RCL's always, I've felt best of breed. I know some people were saying, oh, Vikings best of breed now. Yeah. But I've always had RCL as best of breed. NCLH, CCL have always been laggards in comparison to RCL. I mean, RCL hit new all-time highs there. just a couple of months ago, has come off substantially here, but bounced off the lows as well. Went from 270 down to 165 and back up to 216. Now we're 227. I don't know if I'm chasing. I don't like to chase anything trading up 5% here, but I also, respect, that, hey, here's an environment where they could have easily said, due to uncertainty with international travel, due to the tariffs, we're just, not going to give guidance. They're raising their guidance. So they see everything still going pretty well there at RCL.
Yeah, some commentary from the CEO was that bookings for 2025 have remained on track. Cancellation levels are normal, and we continue to see excellent close-in demand. They further commented about guest spending. Guest spending on board and pre-cruise purchases continue to exceed prior years, driven by greater participation at higher prices. Now, we heard from Joel yesterday, boots on the ground. Was he on a cruise? Did he do that as well? Because he seemed like he was all over the place. And he said things were pretty elevated in terms of traffic that he saw in his travels. So interesting conflicting reports. We also have Hilton out there too, which is another travel type name, up slightly in that space. So pretty interesting to hear which companies are saying that they're doing okay versus what we heard from the airlines last week, which a bit on the weaker side, right?
Yeah, so it's mixed results really for that traveler. And, so we can speculate, but I'll say the same thing. I traveled to Florida there a few weeks back, and the international terminal, like in Toronto, was very dead. But then when you're down in Tampa, it was packed. So there's still domestic travel happening for sure.
Yeah.
I don't think it's a matter of like, I'm not sure, with the international, if that's going to be down, like numbers that we keep getting, and obviously we're getting from Financial Times. We've had some numbers from different places. It looks like international travel is down, but it looks like domestic traveler is still traveling. And Joel said the same thing. He was, obviously bouncing around there a lot, and he thought everything was fairly busy as well. So I think there's still people doing stuff. I don't think recession is not here. If it's coming, we don't know, but it doesn't appear to be here at all. Like at least the boots on the ground test.
Dennis, I just want to get your thoughts a little bit on the price action here in RCL. We did have the stock come down, like a good 100 points since February. They raised their guidance when I don't know who the heck was expecting RCL to raise their guidance. Do you think it's a bit of a muted response, only up 4 or 5% here this morning?
I think it's a tough tape. Like, again, people have been burned chasing stocks higher. And I've been saying this is not 2025 has been the year not to chase. It's been the year where you take the money and run. You get these lifts and they seem to last for a few hours, maybe a couple days in some cases, but eventually starts to leak back. So the fade trade for me is still on. And I think once bitten, twice shy. So this, people are starting to learn that you don't buy the stock up 5% think it's going up 10%. You short the stock up 5% because then it's giving it back. Now, I'm not shorting Royal Caribbean, but I think that probably weighs on it, just investor sentiment. Not investors, trader sentiment to a certain extent, because the trading sentiment has been to fade moves in this market.
Sure. We still do have a few more earnings reports to get through. Hopefully we can get to them before we have our guest at 8:35 a.m., Ivan Feinseth. If not, we will be covering earnings after our guest. Let's keep it going here. Honeywell, another strong report, folks. They beat on the quarter. They raised their guidance. They also gave some Q2 guidance, which was pretty decent too. Christian, did you have any color, any thoughts on Honeywell here?
Well, this space has been super, super strong. The aerospace, we saw Boeing come out with good earnings. We've seen a number of other names that are looking very strong in the defense group. So they said Honeywell has been like a laggard in the group for a while. So I'm interested to see if this thing can turn. But if you're not familiar with this space, here's XAR. This is aerospace and defense. I mean, very close to getting back to new highs. Just a whole bunch of strength within this group. And I mean, it's only a couple % off those previous highs. So it's one of the strongest groups out there. Here's the overall chart in Honeywell. Again, it has been a bit of a serial laggard over the last couple of years. They said that they see a second quarter organic sales 1% +1% to +4%, estimated 2.7%. There also sees second quarter adjusted EPS 260 to 270 versus estimated 257. So there's some good numbers there. They also said they're shaking off the tariff impact a bit. So I like when some of these companies, I talked about this last week with 3M, GE Aerospace also had a very good quarter last week too. But I like some of these companies that are basically saying that they can navigate through this environment versus some other companies that are saying we're withdrawing guidance and we can't do it. It's too much unknown. So here's GE Aerospace that are almost back to the highs. And Honeywell, I'll keep on the radar. I don't think I'll be buying it, but I got to see a little bit more technically from it. Here's what it looks like on the weekly chart. It does have some support. So if you're, longer term, I think this is not a bad place to be going after Honeywell, considering that it's just kind of sitting on support. But I think this is a name that you got to be patient with.
Dennis, any quick comments? You want to go to our last
let's
earnings
keep moving
priority?
Because we so many companies coming in, so we'll keep moving. Let's keep moving. Got to keep
SoFi,
moving
folks, SOFI, a beat, another raise guidance here, folks. Just looking at these numbers, I mean, we picked out a bit of a priority list to go over because we had so many earnings this morning. We said, let's get to like 6 or 7 high priority ones. We didn't necessarily pick the ones that necessarily had strong guidance, but we're looking at these reports and these reports are looking pretty darn good for the most part. We're having a couple mixed reports, but we're having a lot of beats. We're having a few raises. Dennis, you had SoFi on your list to watch. Why did you have this one on your list?
Retail darling. This is very much trade 12 million shares. It's highly traded by the retail community. I've been along it for the last few days, obviously talking about it in the STN room. Just into the earnings. Now again, I don't take the stocks through the earnings, but it's just being long stocks ahead of reports, and this is one that just fits that bill. It always seems to get the retail love, and obviously this morning it's getting retail love here as well. Now, we got to give a perspective here. We're up 8%. I just said we're not in this market to chase. The stock was $8 15 trading sessions ago. Now it's 14, so it's up 75% in 14 days. At this point in time, if you're buying it here, I think you're chasing.
Yeah, interesting. The short interest is still about 14%. So, there's quite a bit of shorts in this name. I know that I don't want to get too in the weeds of this company, but weren't they involved in a lot of like student loan business too? Is that why? Is that been the weight that's been on this company for a while? So in any event, 1313 is
that sounds familiar.
And I see resistance coming. I would watch 15. I think it could possibly move up to $15.24. That would be a big technical level. So, but moving quite nicely here in the pre-market.
Do we lose Christian there? Oh
no,
I don't.
Yeah,
I don't think so. No.
You're good.
So
moving along here.
We're moving along,
folks. We do have our guest coming on here.
Yeah. Ivan will be here in a second. I think you're breaking up.
Go for it, Dennis, please.
So Brinker International, EAT reported earnings here as well. EAT, I'll give you those numbers there, and it's not good. 266 versus 257, 1.43 billion versus 1.39 billion is solid actually here. Actually, man, it's not that bad. I mean, they gave a range here again. So, we're getting this into this range thing, and whether that's due to tariffs or not, I don't know. I didn't dive into the report, and I can't think about that this would be a lot of tariffs in the guidance from EAT, but they're giving a range here, $7.50 to $8 analyst estimates, or $8.50 to $8.75. So they give 2 different scenarios again. Analyst estimates around $8.48. That's for the full year of 2025. Stock is getting crushed. It's down 11 points, and that's a crushing for EAT because this is a stock that typically moves $3 or $4. I would imagine this is well outside the expected move. It's bouncing off the lows. We were lower here this morning. But I mean, I think this is something that people weren't that concerned about. Is the restaurants, quick service restaurants here that Brinker owns. Like Brinker owns which ones? Brinker restaurants. Let's go take a look.
Chili's.
Chili's. There's some other ones in there too. Chili's the main one.
And they did say, the CEO said, Chili's delivered another positive quarter in our turnaround with plus 31% same-store sales driven by plus 21% traffic. The CEO said that. Now, it's also Maggiano's, but a lot of, I see mostly Chili's, I guess, is the big driver for this. But I guess it didn't meet heightened expectations. Bernstein was out this morning. Barclays analyst Jeffrey Bernstein. Sorry about that. A little bit of confusion there. But said that the restaurant chain operator posted its narrowest EPS beat since the fourth quarter of 2024. The analyst said that the third quarter results fell short of elevated buy-side expectations. So there you go. Good quarter. But those damn analysts, their expectations were a little bit too high. Could be a dip to buy, though. What do you think, Dennis?
I think you've got multiple levels in this 134 to 135. I'm looking at the March lows, and if Joel is here, and Joel's off today because Joel's actually just feeling a little under the weather. He was under the weather yesterday, but 131, 132, you had a lot. We're a long ways away from there, though. So I don't know. I feel like 147 is kind of in the middle of nowhere for me. We're down 140. I get a little bit more interested. How low did we get this morning, Christian? Do you see it on the charts?
Yeah, we got down to about 138. I see support.
Oh my gosh, we've already been there. So I had to be up earlier. I got to stop sleeping in. Getting up this, I got to get up. You got to get in there at 6 a.m. and get those earnings here because that's a good opportunity. Actually, I guess it was 6:45, but 130. That would be my level, 138 to 140. I didn't even know it's the chart. So we're already off 10 points from the low. So the money's already been made buying the dip, I guess.
Yeah, and I mean, it's another one that kind of rose a little bit into the report. I mean, not quite as high, but is where it was in the beginning of the year, but still made a nice comeback over the last couple weeks. I mean, that may be the culprit too. We've certainly talked about that. Names leading higher into these earnings reports. The bar is just set a little bit too high, so it is coming back. Yeah, I would watch this like 149, 150 level and see if it can overcome that.
S&P 500 futures, folks, trading down 2 points right at the 55.50 level. We still are waiting here for Treasury Secretary Bessent at a White House press briefing. I am tuned into the feed. Right when I see him come up to the podium, I'll let y'all know, and I'll be tuning in to some headlines to see what he's saying. I'll get you those updates. We are still waiting on our guest here, Ivan. He should be kicking around here in the backstage in just a minute. But
I was just going to interrupt for 1 second, considering we're talking about interviews and what to watch for today. We've got a whole slew of economics that comes out after the open today. So be careful around 10 o'clock today. You're going to get both JOLTS jobs openings. So that should be a good reminder that Friday we've got a full jobs report that's coming because it's the first Friday of the month. But we get JOLTS jobs openings, which could be a good gauge on the employment. Kind of a barometer for the jobs market. And then we also get consumer confidence that comes out at the same time. So 2 interesting data points that will come out a half hour after the open today.
Thanks for that, Christian. Why not keep the earnings train going here? We still have a bunch more to go through potentially. PayPal next, PYPL, mixed report. They beat on the earnings per share figure. They missed on the sales. They did affirm their fiscal year 25 guidance. That means they are not changing the previously issued guidance. Their Q2 guidance was strong. They're expecting Q2 adjusted earnings in the range of 129 to 131, a really tight few cent range there. Analysts are at about 121. PayPal shares here this morning trading down a little bit.
This was up into the report pretty good last night and this morning. So when they did report, it did have a pretty good dip on it. It has been bought. The dip has been bought on here again. It's one that should have a lower bar. The stock is off substantially, not far from a 52-week low. It's been just the dog of all dogs for years, though. I mean, really, PayPal's struggles didn't start with tariffs. PayPal's struggles started back in 2021 when the stock was $300 and now it's $60. I mean, it's went from this full growth story into a value trade because the stock price has just come down so much. Just quickly looking at valuation here, PayPal trades with a 4P of 12 now. So, I mean, it just keeps getting cheaper. You thought PayPal was cheap at 16, 15, 14, 13. Now it's 12 times forward earnings. So, I mean, it's definitely hits the bill of about a value stock here now. Dip getting bought. I mean, Christian, any thoughts here, PayPal? Christian's on mute.
I'm going to pass on PayPal. I like fintech, but I think, I'm more in the camp of Robinhood. They're just not being innovative enough. Clearly they're making money on their payments, but they mentioned that their payment volume was a little bit off. I think there's better places to be in the fintech world right now. So I'm going to pass.
I'm wondering, Block, if this doesn't set the bar a little bit lower for Block. XYZ, and I should call them Square, but I'm starting to call them Block. It's after 2 years, I'm finally starting to call them Block. They report Thursday night. And these two stocks, I've pair traded these things forever. If you look at the two charts, they're virtually identical. But sometimes you get one that's like, it isn't that great. So I think if XYZ, I think this actually lowers the bar even a little bit more for XYZ. And XYZ is a little bit more of a sexy name, meaning it's a little bit more followed in the retail community than PayPal. PayPal was at one time, but everybody got burned and they've just forgotten about it. But XYZ, people still talk about this as a comeback story. Valuation perspective here, it's always fun to look at a little bit of fundies there too. XYZ only trades 13 times forward earnings. So is there a place for Square to ever come back to being that, growth story here? Christian, I'll throw it at you. I mean, the stock at one time was $275. We're $58. Is there any place for Square in Christian Fromhertz long-term portfolio?
Nope. And the reason being is I
tried hard.
You tried.
That was nice, Dennis.
There's just too much competition.
Like a full pitch.
So when I used, like a couple years ago, I would, when I would go to get food someplace or, in New York City, all I saw were Square terminals, right? And now I see a whole bunch of other ones, and I don't see it as much. I mean, I still think that they do a good job and they do a good service for their merchants and services, but I just see so many other companies on when you go check out at the end of the day. It doesn't only, I think they lost a lot of market share. Bitcoin was a thing that they got into, but there's another company in this space too that reported earnings this morning, which is Shift for Payments, which is another one which is catching a little bit of a lift. I think they've kind of gotten a little bit more into, rather than having the whole space. I guess they try to do get into like a small area of the market. Shift for Payments is one of those companies too. So is Toast. So I think I would stay more with Toast and with Shift for Payments rather than the PayPal and the Square. I think I've kind of changed. I even brought up the wrong symbol. I thought Square was still SQ. It's XYZ, but
I know.
So it kind of tells you where it's fallen off my my radar, these names.
I think you make a great point just with the competition in this space. And there just seems to be so many people who are after, the payments, and the payments. And I totally agree with you. I mean, PayPal was, there for a long time, and the competition, we kept talking about competition coming from Apple Pay, coming from everywhere for them. It eventually did. And it's just come for all these companies. And now it's just really competitive there. And so, that's why all these stocks come from growth multiples where they were trading 40, 50 times earnings and huge growth stories to come into value trades because they're kind of in their spot. They're not growing much. So they're all trading 12, 13 times earnings, which is well under a market multiple. And what's the growth aspects? It's just not there anymore because the competition is too intense.
And they boosted their forecast too. I mean, so really just kind of, I know we're going through a lot of these names really quickly, but the main thing that I try to look for in some of these earnings reports is whether the company's executing. Right? They will go on my watch list of names that I want to watch, provided that they're saying they're growing. We want companies that are growing. We don't want companies that are declining or coming up with excuses. Now, granted, tariffs are a good excuse to have, but if every quarter you hear a different excuse, it's not the company that I want to be in. So at least I try to kind of segregate the companies with the ones that are doing well. We want to own the strongest companies, not the weakest companies. So I think Brent wanted to chime in with any new developments. Or
yeah, just wanted to give a quick update. Ivan
Okay,
is in the background. We're going to intro him in here in just a sec, but I did just want to give a real quick update on the White House press briefing. Bessent has not yet stepped to the podium. White House Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt is currently speaking. She's talking about investments that the Trump administration has made so far in the first 100 days or so. Again, I'll give you an update when Bessent comes to the podium, but let's bring in our guests here. Ivan Feinseth from Tigress. Financial. Here we go. Good morning, Ivan. How's your morning going so far?
It's been pretty crazy, but it's good to see you guys. How's everybody doing?
No complaints here. No complaints here. Just trucking along here through all of these earnings reports. Any quick outtakes from any earnings that you have been covering so far, Ivan? Why don't we get started there since we are in the middle of earnings?
Starting last week with Google, Alphabet, they announced that they had spent $17 billion in capital investment in the first quarter, reiterated for the second time in 2 weeks in a row their $75 billion commitment for 2025 in AI and data center investment. We got this announcement yesterday from IBM of a $150 billion 5-year commitment. I mean, this follows $100 billion from Amazon, $75 billion from, $80 billion from Microsoft, $65 billion from Meta. That's just for this year. The $500 billion commitment from combined commitment for Project Stargate. These companies have to invest to maintain their leadership and competitive advantage. And I think that all of these reports that Microsoft or Amazon are walking away from data center leases, it's just a negotiating process. And there is no pulling back from spending on AI. And this is a multi-decade investment theme that we are just at the beginning. So I think any weakness on some of this noise, and I think erroneous reports, is a buying opportunity in this stock. And the number one beneficiary is going to be Nvidia. And then I've spoken about other ancillary plays that will benefit from data center build out, including companies like LandBridge and Texas Pacific Land, nuclear reactor builder, Oklo. So there's 4 things that you need for a data center. You need power, you need water, you need land, and you need connectivity. And you put all of these things, this helps companies like Broadcom, Cisco, also software provider, Oracle. This is a tremendous investment theme. That is the next industrial revolution.
Just to interrupt you here for a second with breaking news, we do have Secretary Bessent speaking at the White House here right now. It doesn't appear that he's going to announce a trade deal. I think that's why it's selling off. He's talking about speaking with 17 other countries, but I think he would have started with that. So I think the market is getting nervous here. Christian Fromhertz is posting in our chat all of the breaking headlines here. But I think the market just sold off here right now because he didn't start with a deal, and he talked about talking to 17 countries. So it doesn't sound like he has a deal to announce. And there was speculation that he could announce a deal with either India or Japan here this morning. That doesn't appear to be the case, and that's why futures are taking a dip. Okay, so Ivan, I want to jump in here because just get overall, and we want to jump into Microsoft, Meta, Apple, and Amazon with you as well, but I just want to get your overall take here because we've had substantial sell-offs in all of these names due to tariffs. Is this just noise in the long-term thesis in these names, and this is just like a great buying opportunity? Because obviously we saw Amazon and Apple get hit the hardest here on tariffs because, you know, Apple, we don't know if they can make the iPhones as cheap as they're going to be able to make them, or they're going to have to raise the price. And maybe we start there just with the Apple because it's going to report here Thursday. The stock got killed from 220 down to 170 after Independence Day, and those tariffs were announced. It has bounced back a lot here. Do you think Apple figures this out? Are you concerned about the cost of iPhone potentially going higher if there is tariffs, or is this just going to be temporary? What are your thoughts here on Apple?
Well, from the beginning, they've already been given a 90-day exemption, similar to what President Trump did in his first term. And that 90 days is going to give them the ability to make a deal and to start to look. They early on, they were moving away from a China-based supply chain, and they're moving into India. And they've also made a $500 billion 5-year commitment in the U.S. too. Now, companies cannot build factories overnight. It is going to take some time. I think that President Trump wants to use tariffs to fight tariffs. He wants a level playing field. He doesn't necessarily want a large tariffs on imported goods into the U.S. And what I think he also wants, knowing that things cannot change overnight, are these commitments from companies that are going to start to invest and build factories and produce goods here. He wants to see what's sold here, made here. That will take some time, but it's starting to get, I mean, Hyundai has made a commitment to a $20 billion commitment to build further factories in the U.S., $5 billion of that for a steel plant. He wants, we also need to have steel and aluminum made here. It's a part of national security. He wants processors made here, also part of national security. Should we ever have an issue where we're confronting China over Taiwan, as an example, we can't be dependent on China as steel and aluminum to build the ships and the planes that we're going to need to potentially engage with them over Taiwan. So we need more manufacturing independence. And this will not happen overnight, but I think once we start to get commitments, and once we get one trade deal, yes, it's been anticipated it could be China or Japan, that will set the framework for understanding future trade deals that I think will come sequentially right after that. And unfortunately, this morning, GM pulled guidance over tariff uncertainty. But once we have some tariff understanding and certainty, then companies can operate and budget accordingly.
Ivan, I want to jump into Amazon, your thoughts here as well. Just this morning, Amazon is announcing that they will show the cost of Trump tariffs on each product. That is interesting in itself as well. And obviously, Apple and Amazon have been two that have been caught in the crosshairs here with this tariff war, obviously, between China and the U.S. Thoughts here on Amazon? I'm long in full disclosure in my long-term portfolio. Still believe in the long-term story, and the valuation is as cheap as it's ever been.
Rating on it, I believe it goes a lot higher. This is a buying opportunity, and remember that it is not only does Amazon source, but they manage sellers. And I've already seen some items that I buy on a subscription basis. The price has gone up because of the tariffs, so I've canceled the subscriptions, and I will buy other substitute products. So Amazon doesn't really care what you buy, as long as what you buy from them. So there's going to be a lot of movement, and I think a shift for sellers that are based outside of China that won't be as affected by the tariffs. And the fact that they would show the tariff, it makes it easier to make your decision. So just more transparency.
Stock that's held up well.
I'm sorry, go on.
Microsoft has held up better than the other ones here, Ivan. So Microsoft I was just looking at, and I'm just looking at the charts, and this is one of the few stocks that's actually back up to where it was when all the tariffs were obviously originally announced on Independence Day. What are your thoughts here on Microsoft?
The tariffs. I mean, they do make a lot of what, like the products they sell, the Xbox, the Surface computers, peripherals are made outside the U.S., but, primarily their business is their cloud, their off service, Azure, AI, the Office suite. So those are not really subject to tariffs because they're downloaded here. So Microsoft got dragged down in the tech sector sell-off, not really the tariff-driven sell-off. So I think Microsoft, as part of the AI theme of Microsoft, Google, Amazon, Facebook, is a buy here.
Hey, Ivan, a question for you regarding a little bit towards valuation, because we were talking about this last week as we look at, for example, like Walmart and how expensive Walmart has gotten. And we had Google report last week, and, Google got a little bit cheap and had to bounce there for a quick second. And so with Amazon reporting, do you think this has finally gotten to the price where it's no longer expensive and that this is a good buy down here, especially versus some of the companies that you may compare to Amazon?
I mean, I don't value companies in the traditional way of PE, but I think Amazon, based on its ability to produce economic profit, its investing to increase return on capital, is a buy here. And then Walmart, I was recently in Texas at 2 Walmart distribution centers, watching how automated it was. Now, I'm going to tell you that they have the resources and the innovative ability to continue to drive incredible operating efficiency. I went to I went to a cold warehouse, which has refrigerated goods at 34 degrees, and to a deep freeze warehouse, which was minus 15 degrees. I wore the clothing that the jacket, hat, gloves that they gave me, and I could only stay in there for about 5 minutes. So you used to have people working in there 8 hours a day. Now it's all automated, and what you have are people who are just supervising the automation and the process using tablet computers to oversee and manage everything. In their e-commerce delivery warehouse, they went from a fulfillment of an order from 3 to 4 hours to 30 minutes. They have automated box making machines that make over 2,200 different size boxes, so you get the exact box to fit the items that you're ordering, which increases their ability to put more boxes on trucks to ship and continue to increase the speed of this process and increase their operating efficiency. And if tariffs hit all products that you're buying, then Walmart will figure out how to reduce the cost. So I think that if tariffs were to drive up costs of a lot of goods, then people are going to shift to Walmart because they're going to say that it's going to be still cheaper there. And Walmart has made tremendous market share gains in higher income consumers, including the fact that if you have an American Express Platinum card, you get a free Walmart Plus annual membership, which is worth like $130. So there's so many things that you could offset the cost of a American Express Platinum, where it's, you're making money on it. That's a plug for American Express and Walmart.
Ivan, I wish we could keep chatting here. We got, a few more topics we got to get to on the show, but appreciate you coming here this morning.
Yeah.
Hope you have a good rest of your week.
You too. Thank you.
All right, later, Ivan.
Thanks, Ivan.
Besant still
So
speaking.
Markets have sold off
folks?
substantially here. Yeah, markets have sold off substantially here on Besant comments. He's talking lots of talk. But like I was just saying, talk is cheap, and this market wants deals here now because we have been talking about talks for the past 2 weeks. Talks. The market was excited to finally get a deal here this morning. Did not get it. That is why we were selling off here. Lots of other commentary. Christian, I know you've been listening live. Some other stuff that you want to hear?
Yeah, the secretary is talking about Amazon and refers to Amazon posting impact of tariffs, mentioned something to the effect of, and I'm just reading in the headlines, I'm not listening to the actual interview, but says it's a hostile act by Amazon to talk about the breaking out, I guess, the impact of the tariffs. So that coupled with nothing concrete about deals, except that they're working closer with India. But yeah, Amazon is taking a hit on that. Speaking of, we just covered Amazon, but there you go, moving down on that headline.
We do have one more news item that we wanted to get to and didn't have a chance to. Tesla insider buy. First insider buy, Dennis, in how long did you say? I think Dennis is delayed here, folks. Dennis, can you hear?
Yeah, this is
I'm
just
very shutting down.
Oh, go ahead.
Sorry, I was just shutting down some other programs, so I'm trying to run too much on that PC right now, and I know I was delayed here the last few minutes. They were just letting me know. Yeah, so Tesla last night gets announced. We get our first insider buy in Tesla since 2020. I believe this is the Airbnb guy, isn't it, Christian? Is this?
Yeah, exactly. He's I believe the founder. So he's got a lot of money. That's the that's the other like asterisk to put on the insider buy. Great insider buy that
Sure.
Dennis is mentioning. Go ahead. Sorry.
Yeah, when you have a person with a net worth of $7 billion and they buy $1 million worth of stock, it's fun to say that this is the first insider buy since 2020, and it is, but it's pretty small. So the question is, do the Tesla, obviously we got all the Tesla retail and people who love the stock, do they run with this? Maybe. Market is not helping it. I mean, it was up all morning here on this insider buy. Nothing's helped Tesla here this morning. And I actually did buy some Tesla and still long some Tesla on this last night. But nothing has helped it this morning because, one, the stock was trading up $3, and then GM reported, and they hit the stock, and then it got it back, and now we got Besson tanking the whole market. So Tesla's coming down here again. So nothing's really helping it here. I do think the Tesla chart looks a lot better. I mean, since, obviously earnings day, and the stock disappointed on earnings day, but didn't go down. When stocks don't go down on bad news, it's signs that they obviously want to go higher. And then the next day, we get a little lift in the market and Tesla leads the way. So I do think I like the relative strength. I kind of like the chart. I am long it still in the long-term portfolio. And I do think that, this could get bought, but again, on this insider buy, but it's pretty small and obviously, not from, when the guys.
Hey guys, how you doing? How's the show today?
We've had internet problems.
Internet problems.
On myself,
can I just add
I just want to give you,
we'll figure it out.
When you're not feeling well, do you know what the best thing to do? Have you ever heard the term sleep for the cycle?
This is a 1910 term when Joel was born.
No, maybe 1960, 1970-ish. When I told my dad he didn't feel good, he said, get a good night's rest. So sleeping for the cycle is when you get almost 12 hours of sleep.
Oh, wow. Is that what you did?
Yeah. Yep.
Smart move.
Yep. Crashed on the couch and moved upstairs, but fired up for 9 a.m. Stock Trader Network. Jonathan Corpina. Dennis, I will tell you why I disagree with you on the Tesla chart in the STN room.
He says the Tesla chart's bad.
It's not, yeah. I don't like it. I don't like the market. I don't like Tesla. I don't like anything. We'll see you guys later on.
So back, Joel's been bearish, and then he goes away, and the stock market goes up. Joel comes back, and the stocks start going down again. Joel, you are the problem here right now. You keep coming with these bearish themes, and then the market starts going down here again. You got to stop commenting on the markets, and the market can actually go up.
We'll talk
it's
about
Joel
the double
holding
top.
down the entire market.
Double top in the market. All right, let's get out of here, get in the STN room, and I'm fired up, guys. Let's hit some charts.